Hello and welcome to the virtual investor conferences. My name is Athena Katsoulis on behalf of Social Suite ESG as well as the OTC markets. We're very pleased to have you join us for our next live presentation from Galantas Gold Corp, a gold production company with projects in Northern Ireland and Scotland. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for their one-on-one meetings through the scheduled meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Mario Stefano, Chief Executive Officer of Galantas Gold Corp, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol GALKF and on the TSXV under the symbol GAL. Welcome, Mario.
Well, thanks, Athena, for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in for the Galantas Gold presentation. At a very high level, some exciting things are developing at Galantas Gold. I'll get into a little bit more detail, but today, for example, you would have seen some great drill results in our project in Scotland that we recently acquired, where we drilled 33 meters at 1.88 grams gold and 1.23% copper in what we think could be a sizable district VMS play in Scotland. But the focus right now for the company is our project in Northern Ireland, and it's our gold project in Northern Ireland. But before I get into too much detail, just going to remind everyone about the forward-looking statements. This is the mining industry. It is interesting in the sense that if you have potential for these world-class deposits, a lot of value could be created, but it does take time to identify these projects, and there is always a lot of risk associated with the exploration side of things. So feel free to read through that cautionary statement. But why is Galantas unique and I think extraordinarily well positioned to capitalize on multiple metals? And the first metal that we're focused on, obviously, is gold in Northern Ireland. We have a historical mine that was producing small scale open pit, 30,000 ounces of gold, and transitioning to underground mining. But we are in what we think is a world-class district, and we do know we're in a world-class district because next to us is a 10 million plus ounce deposit at Dalridian, and we think we have significant potential. We're just a little bit behind where they are on the drilling side of things at Galantas, and again, I'll go into a little bit more detail there. For a lot of people that look at metals, one of the areas that probably doesn't enter anyone's mind is, Ireland and Northern Ireland just hasn't been an area of focus for a lot of mining companies and exploration companies. But from our perspective, we're extraordinarily confident that we're in a major district here that runs from Ireland into Northern Ireland into Scotland. And it's really just, continued drilling here and developing these projects and advancing these projects, I think will continue to demonstrate that there's world-class potential in this area. At Galantas, it was focused in the early days on open pit, as I mentioned earlier, and then we started to transition to underground mining. Financial markets were difficult, so it was always under capitalized. But we think now we've got all the missing pieces to really start creating some significant shareholder value here at Galantas. And, it's very rare to find high-grade gold deposits in great jurisdictions like Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, the Western world. And, these deposits with significant land potential are rare to come by. And Galantas, I think, has done a great job in securing this land package and demonstrating that we have potentially a significant gold discovery here in Northern Ireland. In terms of production, Galantas was in production. We had to pause, and the reason for that is because of Brexit. It was difficult to find experienced miners. We're only able to hire miners with either an Irish citizenship passport or a UK passport. And as many of you know, mining has not been a focus of the younger generation. I think that's going to change because mining is becoming more and more critical to feed the EV revolution. But we had a hard time trying to maintain a mining force. So we had to pause, but we think we've got a solution to that, which will be more of that will be coming out in the coming days and weeks on what we plan to do there. But we had to pause because we couldn't find that sustainable workforce. But that being said, when we were mining underground, we demonstrated the grades, we demonstrated the continuity, we demonstrated that we could mine this ore body, while at the same time we continue to expand the resources at Oma. So I think that's the great opportunity here. We have what we think is a significant deposit that's going to continue to grow. That could be mined to generate cash flow to fund future exploration and development. We came out with an updated resource, and basically what we were able to do is increase our historical resource by around 77%. And it's around 300,000 ounces of gold. And you might be saying, well, that's not a multi-million ounce deposit. And that's really what we've drilled to date. And to really try and put this in perspective, we've really drilled two veins, the Kearney vein and the Joshua vein. And the Joshua vein has been drilled to a depth of about 200 meters. The Kearney vein has been drilled to a depth of about 300 meters. This is old rocks, very similar to what you would see in Canada. These deposits go down to the bowels of the earth. And what our drill program has indicated and demonstrated is we've got great continuity on the mineralization. We've been able to expand the resource. It's very shallow, but this thing could go down to 1,000-meter plus depth. And when you look at Dalridian, which is 20 kilometers away from us, and their 10 million ounce deposit from what we hear now, they at the time identified 26 veins, and they drilled down to 1,000-meter depth. We've really only drilled two veins. We've identified 16 veins to date. We've only drilled in this area 25,000 meters, and that is a fraction of what other mining companies would have drilled in. We are now going to be drilling from surface, the Joshua vein. So I'm extraordinarily excited now that we're drilling from surface again after 2 years. So our goal will be as well to try and expand these resources and really show the market that we have another very high grade deposit here at Oma in Northern Ireland. So the 300,000 ounces that we have, that was based on 43101 rules that have economic parameters around it, compared to the 2014 result that we came out with 170,000 ounces of gold. So extraordinarily excited as we continue to drill here. I really do see that we're going to continue to expand those resources. And we basically, let's call it, increase the resources by 75% with 10,000 meters of extra drilling. So imagine if we can do 100,000 meters here, what we could actually demonstrate in terms of resources in this area. So why is this an interesting area for exploration and gold and minerals? Well, historically, this was all one large landmass. So you look in Newfoundland, the Appalachian, which is the Carolinas. This used to be all one large landmass. And the age of rocks that you see in Northern Ireland and Scotland are the same age of rocks you would see in Newfoundland. You've got some world-class discoveries in this part of the world. Voisey's Bay, for example, for nickel, you've got some great gold projects and copper projects at Gaspé, for example. And the Horn. So you got some real world-class discoveries in Canada. But when you look at Northern Ireland and Scotland, there's really been a fraction of the exploration that would have occurred in Canada. But what's interesting here is you got the same geology, you got these major faults, and I'm sure many of you know about newfound gold in Newfoundland, actually. Exact same geology as ourselves, same faults, world-class potential there. They're hitting some fantastic results, and I'm sure they're over $1 billion again in terms of market cap. We've got very similar geology, hitting some great results as well, but the market just hasn't yet fully zeroed in on Northern Ireland. But you look 20 kilometers away from us, you've got a private company already owned by Orion, which is one of the largest private equity funds, and they control a 10 million ounce deposit. So it really demonstrates the potential that we have here in this area. And I'm extraordinarily excited what we can find here because we are one of the largest landowners in this part of the world. And you look at this chart here, so you've got the island there of Ireland, and then you go into Scotland, you can sort of see that gold trend developing. You got ourselves, you've got Dalridian, and you have Scott Gold. And really the three of us control in many respects this district. So you look at Australia or you look in Canada or the United States, you might have 30, 40 juniors that would have controlled this kind of ground. In this case, it's ourselves and Dalridian in Northern Ireland, and Scott Gold has got a great land package as well in Scotland. So, the ability for juniors to not only have potential for world-class assets, but really have almost exclusive rights to find those world-class assets in our land package is extraordinarily unique, I think. And why do I think we have potential for a multi-million ounce deposit? Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when you look at what we drilled at Joshua and Kearney, and on this chart, you can see that in the yellow areas. Those are very shallow drilling to date. Kearney 300-meter depth, Joshua 200-meter depth. But there's been indication of a number of veins to the east and west of both of those veins. For example, just west of the Joshua vein is the Kestrel vein with some holes, high grade. Just east of the Kearney vein is the Sammy's vein. Again, some interesting drill holes. And you move further east and west, you got some high priority targets that would have been identified by Rio Tinto in the 80s, but haven't really been followed up other than some surface work that demonstrate that there is, some wide zones there of gold potential. So you factor that in, plus the depth potential of what we've already identified, and you can understand why I think we have a multi-million ounce potential in this area. And even if you just focus on Joshua and Kearney, you go down to a 1,000-meter depth here, which is very reasonable when you're looking for mining underground high grade. You can see why you get to the million-plus ounce potential just on two veins alone. So I'm pretty excited on what we're starting to see here, and we are drilling now Joshua from surface, which I think will really allow us to expand and identify more high-grade resources in this area. What's really interesting here, and I know this is a critical metals presentation, and we do have gold, and I'll get into critical metals as well, but you can see where we've been focused on in this presentation on the Joshua and the Kearney veins, and they are open on strike to the north and to the south and to the east and to the west, but we've got a number of targets around what we call the Covenant member unit. It's that green area, and the reason why that's critical here when you're looking for gold is that there is where you find the quartz-rich veins. And some of the historical drilling that Rio Tinto would have done in the 80s, they didn't fully understand this area in the 80s, and they didn't drill into the green unit. So they hit gold near surface or other areas, but they didn't actually find what would have been the gold-rich units, which we now understand where all the gold is. And that's how Dalradian discovered their project. That's how we discovered our project. And we're just getting started here in terms of trying to find the real potential of what this could deliver for our shareholders. What's interesting here, and there's something I'm gonna just very quickly highlight as well, just out of curiosity here. But that green rich unit you can see dips to the north, just to the north of us from surface. Rio Tinto did drill some holes, some interesting grades, but they didn't drill through into that green unit, which is where we think all the high grade gold is located. And you can see as we continue to drill and we continue to follow this to depth, we think we're going to continue to hit high grade gold, and the structure is the same for Joshua, the same for Kearney's, the same for Sammy's, the same for all our various veins that we've identified to date. But what's also interesting here, as we're into critical metals, that purple area there is called graphitic schist. And you might ask yourself, who the hell cares about graphitic schist? But pay attention. In the future, hopefully something more will come of this. But graphitic schist is graphite, and we never fully understood that below these units and to the north and south of us, there's potential significant graphitic trends, which is graphite, which is a real key critical metal. In some respects, it's more critical than lithium because there's more graphite now in batteries than lithium. So this is going to be a high priority for companies to find graphite. Not saying we have graphite, but hopefully we do when it's all said and done. And that's going to be something we're going to look into as well. But really what I'm trying to highlight there is, the real exploration potential here that we'll be able to identify as we continue to explore this district, which we control. We have been underground. We've been drilling underground. We've developed underground. We've been mining underground. We're looking for now that new workforce that we can go back underground and mine on a consistent basis. And we are working with a mining contractor, QME. But what's interesting here, as we went underground, this is critical when we try to understand our deposit, is where you get these faults and cross faults, you get these dilation zones. And these dilation zones are where we find higher grade, thicker widths. And one of the reasons why our resource, we're able to increase it by 77% and increase the grade at the same time is incorporating these dilation zones. And these dilation zones, if you look at some of our drill results in a couple of slides, we would hit things like 7 meters or 35 grams gold. And those are high grade, thick widths of mineralization. And these trends are stacked and they dip to the north. So as we continue to develop underground, we identify these dilation zones But more importantly, as we now drill again from surface, we're going to continue to identify and follow these dilation zones to depth. And you look at Dalradian, as they got deeper, they started getting better and better grades and thicker widths. And we think we have similar potential here at Galantas. I'm not going to go through all these drill results. I think you can spend your time going through there, but nonetheless, as we hit these dilation zones, as I mentioned, we hit these 5 meters of 35 grams, 7 meters of 30 grams, 2 meters of 70 grams. So we do have a high grade deposit. Still needs a lot of drilling, I think, to really expand the resource. But we have a great resource to start, including with mining, and we can continue to build these resources as we generate cash flow once we get this back to producing gold ounces. What's interesting, and really what I want to highlight here again, is the potential. So we have the Kearney vein, which is really the main vein, but as we've been drilling and developing underground, we identified parallel veins. And the last drill result we released at Kearney was really the B lens, where it was just about 2 meters of 20 grams gold. Again, not in the main area, a new discovery. We've added continuity to that. And when you look at underground development, the amount of veins that we have in this area, which shouldn't surprise anyone, because we identified 26 veins, really 2 have been drilled. Dalradian identified 26 veins to build their initial resource, which was 6 million ounces, which I said we now hear it's up to 10 million ounces or more. This is a world-class discovery. It's almost like being in Kirkland Lake, or more importantly, Timmins, for example, and you control the whole district. Timmins produced, 20 million ounces to date, somewhere around there. These are world-class districts in Canada that had explorations since the early 1900s. We're just getting started in this district, but again, we control it between ourselves and Dalradian, and that's what makes this really exciting. And every major company is going to be in this district or wanting to get into this district, I think. But we're just getting started. We want to create a lot of value for our shareholders here. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but you can see what we've been able to identify here. Those yellow arrows dipping to the north is those high grade dilation zones. And at Joshua, one of the last holes we drilled was 13 meters of 17 grams. So if you put that in perspective, that was the last hole we drilled from surface. We're now back drilling from surface, and you can see those gaps there in terms of really trying to expand the Joshua resource. And that's what I think is going to make this really exciting as we continue to drill here. You continue to hit these high grade holes. You've got a great discovery at Newfound Gold. Lots of people are focused on it. Eric Sprott's a major shareholder there. Eric Sprott's also a major shareholder here. You can understand why. A lot of major shareholders, from Eric Sprott to Ross Beatty to Mike Gentile. A lot of these guys. Also, you've got Jamie Carrasco, who's very well known in the world as well at Canaccord. We've got some big precious metal investors here because the belief is we have potential for a significant discovery, as well as generating cash flow here at our project. So I mentioned at the very beginning, we issued some fantastic drill results at Garlock, and I'm getting extraordinarily excited about this project. We recently picked this up, and people asked us, why would you have picked up a project in Scotland when you had and you still have a great project in Northern Ireland? And that's a fantastic question. Well, the reason is that we just saw great potential here. You come across these kind of projects once in a lifetime. And, it was something I was aware of. I really like this project. And when I had the opportunity to acquire it, we went for it. And I think we made a fantastic decision here. So basically what this is a Beshi style VMS. Also, you got some of the biggest VMS projects in Japan, in Flin Flon that are of Beshi age, that are gold-rich VMS systems. And those are very rare to find. So this is a gold-rich, gold-copper VMS. Drilling in the 70s by Consolidated Goldfields, and then they stopped because they had to go back to South Africa. So you look at what we have here. Some drilling. We've been drilling. Our first hole, we drilled 19 meters of over almost 4% copper equivalent. We just now released drill results today. 33 meters, our best hole so far. It's only our second hole of 1.8 grams gold, 1.88 grams gold, 1.23% copper, right from surface practically. But what makes this really interesting is this is wide open on strike and to depth. You know, the British Geological Survey has done a lot of work in this area, and they identified this area as key for critical metals for copper and cobalt. And we control 250 square kilometers. So imagine being in Val-d'Or, Quebec, where you have LaRonde and all the big mines that Agnico Eagle has, basically made Agnico. So imagine being there. You're the only company that controls a 250 square kilometer area that has potential for high-grade gold VMS system that we know has now identified, apart from where we're drilling, but 10 kilometers to the south of us, the British Geological Survey sampled an outcrop because it was undercover. So the rock unit's daylight again, 10 kilometers to the south, that was sampling up to 5 grams gold and 1% copper. When we were doing some work in the field, we noticed an outcrop where there was a road cut on the side of the road, an outcrop with a Gossan that had pyrrhotite and bornite, which is high-grade copper, 1.5 kilometers to the east of where we're drilling. So you start to put that in perspective and take a big macro view here. New district, completely unexplored, high-grade gold and copper that hitting these sort of things in Canada, it's extraordinarily hard to find these kind of deposits. Well, we got it now, I think, in Gairloch. So we're extraordinarily excited now. Not only do we have high-grade gold in Northern Ireland, we also have high-grade gold now and copper in Scotland. So any junior that has the potential to find these kind of assets, again, this is usually split up by multiple juniors. We control it all. And you can see some of the core there. We're currently drilling a deeper hole now to see if we can understand the geography here. We're hopeful that we're going to find some mineralization at depth, but the deeper hole is not really justifying the mineralization because we're drilling blind. There's been no geophysics done in this area either, by the way, which is mind-boggling to think about. But the ability here now for us to do some geophysics, start zeroing in on these various targets that have been identified from float, from road cuttings to outcrops. We think we got another big potential VMS district here. And not only do we have copper and gold and zinc, there's also cobalt in this area, and there's a wide anomaly for cobalt in this area, which we don't fully yet understand. And we've also identified some vanadium in this area as well. So, that in itself is intriguing because vanadium a lot of times is associated with some iron, and there is iron in this area as well. So, the short story here is this is exciting, and we think we've got something here, and we may have something extraordinarily exciting here at Gairloch, and we're really excited with how this may progress over the coming months and years. In terms of the team, I'm not going to go into our detail, but we do have a great advisory team here as well, with Tony McCooch, John Arthurs, Tim Warman, people that know this area. Tony and I have been close during my Lakeshore days, and we still talk on a regular basis. And Ernie Mass and I work together at Doré Copper, which is a high-grade copper project in Canada that again is ready to, we're trying to get that into production, working on a feasibility study there while also exploring some high-priority targets there as well. So in terms of the capital structure, and then I'll leave it for questions for the final 5 minutes. We still have a very tight capital structure. We have a great shareholder base with Melcourt, a UK fund, owns about 25% of us. Eric Sprott, Mike Gentile, Premier Milton, Ross Beatty, Jamie Carrasco from Canaccord as well, and his group. we've got a great shareholder base and strong support for what we're trying to achieve here at Galantas. You can sort of see where we can get to with Newfound Gold and Dalradian. And by the way, Dalradian, that was acquired in 2018. I suspect when that gets sold or gets listed, it's 1.5 billion plus US dollar company. So, we're sitting around that $30 million range. We got nowhere to go but up in my mind here. Well, so let me open it up to some questions. And the question is, your resource is based on 8 veins, and you've identified 26. What are the highest potential veins to expand the resource, and what are your plans for the remainder of the year? So just to clarify, we've actually identified 16 veins. We've only really drilled 2 veins. Dalradian Gold identified 26 veins when they got sold to Orion, and at the time they had 6 million ounces at 13 grams. They're up to 10 million ounces, we hear. So the priority veins for us are obviously Joshua and Kearney, because those are the most developed and advanced. But in addition to that, the Kestrel vein just to the west of Kearney, the Sammy's vein just to the east of, Kestrel vein just to the west of Joshua, Sammy's vein just to the east of the Kearney vein. Then we have Elkin's vein, about 500 meters to the east of Kearney. Then we also have Pigeon Top, which is about 1 kilometer to the west of Joshua, and everything that will be in between those identified targets. That's how I think we get to a strong multi-million ounce deposit that hopefully could rival Dalradian. But we've only drilled 25,000 meters, and I think Dalradian would have drilled, when they got sold in 2018, maybe 150,000 meters. So put that in perspective. Once you identify these veins and you just continue to follow them down, it's lower and lower cost to build your resources there. So I'm really excited. We'll focus on Joshua and Kearney, and then we'll start to expand into additional veins to really grow our resources into new veins. Someone asked, would you discuss the composition of the ownership structure? So as I mentioned, because where we are in the potential in our district for high-grade gold, we've got some great funds from Melkor to Eric Sprott to Mike Gentile to Ross Beatty. And these are all long-term shareholders, long-term thinkers. They don't care about the quarter-over-quarter performance of the metal cycle. These are rare type assets, I think. And coming in early, continuing to participate in supporting the company, which they have been, I think demonstrates the vast support we have from our shareholder base here. I have a question on, can you update on production? So as I mentioned, we're working on an updated plan utilizing QME, which is a very well-known mining contractor in Europe. And really what we're going to do now is we're going to completely outsource our mining to the contractor. They're doing work at Terra Mines, they're doing work for Lundin Mining. So very well-known Irish company, Northern Irish subsidiary as well, has great experience in mining these kind of ore bodies. And that really helps in terms of eliminating the pressure from Galantas Gold, trying to find that sustainable workforce for underground mining. And it takes a certain character. I'm being honest, I don't think I could be an underground miner. And I'm sure many of us on this call are not underground miners. But there are people that love to do it. And finding those people, when they love it, and that's all they want to do. But using QME really widens up the area of finding workers in Ireland and Northern Ireland and the UK to work. And they do have a workforce because Terra Mine has been put on care and maintenance. We're not sure for how long, but they will be on care and maintenance for a period of time. And that really expands the resource potential now for a workforce at Galantas. Someone asked about the total land package in 60,000 hectares. What percentage has favorable rock units and mining opportunities? Are there royalties? So first off, most importantly, we have no royalties. We're a royalty-free company, other than we have to pay royalties to the Crown in Northern Ireland. And then in Scotland, once we go into production, the landowner, who's been extraordinarily supportive, has the right to a 2% royalty or a 5% NPI, net profit. Other than that, in Northern Ireland and Oma, we have no royalties. So what percentage of our our land package as favorable rocks. Well, that Dalridian belt extends throughout our whole land package. So I'd say, we've identified over 10 kilometers of favorable area. It's going to continue to expand, but 10 kilometers in itself is a lot of time and a lot of potential. So I'm out of time. I will, again, thank everyone for their questions and support. And I thank you again, and hopefully have a good look at Galantas, because I think we've got an exciting story on our hands here. Thank you.